guest's story today and also the work she's doing. She is truly a powerhouse and such a quiet, gentle spirit, but yet fierce. And those are the people that you must look out for, are those ones who may come off as quiet, but are very bright, brilliant, and changing the world with all of they do. And I am so happy today to have on the Power Transformation podcast, Chanoa Inez. Welcome, Chanoa.
Hi, Alethea. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. You are more than welcome. And I have to admit, for those of you listening, you can't see this, but there's a beautiful piece of artwork behind Shanoa, and it's flowers, and it's so bright and vibrant and a feel. And I love nature. So that's catching my eye. So what I want to do prior to us delving into the actual heart and content of this is I always like to start with a fun, lighthearted icebreaker question. And this is your question, Shanoa. Seeing that you have those flowers behind you, are you a nature and outdoorsy person? And if so, why? And if not, what is something that you like to do whenever you have downtime?
Mm. I am a
Mm.
nature person, although I always think I don't spend enough time in nature. I'm gonna have to just the next place I live, I'm just gonna have to move back to the beach and just be like a block from the water, and then I
Uh-huh.
know I'll be around it more. I do live very close to walking distance to Griffith Park, so I'm lucky to have that, and it's bigger than Central Park actually here in
Mm.
Los Angeles. So I do go for hikes, but I like a thicker forest situation.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And are you a California native or did you move there later on in life?
No, I'm originally from New York State, about an hour from the city.
Uh-huh.
And then my family moved to Florida, South Florida. Half of my childhood was in New York, half was in Florida. And then I stayed there until I moved to Montenegro. I stayed in the Balkans for almost 7 years and then flew to Los Angeles, moved to Los Angeles. So
So you said goodbye East Coast and hello to global travel and ultimately California. And I love that. Wow. That is so beautiful to captivate because whenever you've had such extensive and vastly different places to live, it can help to shape a person's identity in some form. And so that leads me to asking you this question that you may answer in any way that you choose. But who is Shanoa Inez?
oh wow.
Mm.
Um, that's interesting. Chanoa Inez. Okay, I would say that I am a citizen of the world. I definitely
Mhm.
feel like that. And I felt like that before I ever started traveling.
Mhm.
I'm a creative and I'm a person who is very passionate about, honestly, humans. And so while I love technology and I spend a lot of time on my devices doing some very interesting things, as time goes on, I see it's more and more important for us to all connect as people
Mhm.
and for really for humanity to not keep looking towards technology to outdo us. We're looking for some kind of, I feel like some kind of almost like a master in technology and AI. And we haven't really
Mhm.
explored all of the, I think, really supernatural things that we have inside us. I think we're all humans are really great and but we tend to ignore it and just kind of look outside of
Mhm.
ourselves.
I like to think that way too about people, and sadly, a lot of people don't have hope for humans much anymore. But
Yeah.
I still think that there is hope. And just listening to you talking about that, what is the importance of human connection, especially in times like we are in now globally and domestically?
Ooh, it's everything. And I think more of it would solve so much.
Mm-hmm.
Even just, it's very concerning for a lot of younger generations that um, a lot of them are, if their parents haven't made a concerted effort to keep them social, it's just something very foreign to them to connect with
Mm-hmm.
others. Um, and we are social creatures. We really need that to thrive
Mm-hmm.
and also to understand one another. Um, they say reading fiction helps to expand our empathy. I agree with that. But also recently, I've been watching content from people who once upon a time I would have judged them. And I just want
Mhm.
to, I'm very curious. The more I don't agree with somebody, I want to hear. It's not like I'm trying to convince myself that to take up their perspectives, but it's allowing me to see people more as a complete, complicated figure. And I think right now, with so many digital only interactions, people
Mhm.
are able to just kind of brush people aside and not really consider other people who are different from them, or they're afraid to show who they are to other people because everyone's just like kind of like a click or a swipe away. And we're
Mhm.
kind of, we're not really appreciating this gift we have, humanity.
Wow. And that takes a certain level of emotional intelligence to be willing to seek to understand a person, even if their views are different. And it doesn't mean that you're going to agree with them, but you want to seek to really understand their way of thinking, their way of being, their way of doing and acting. And what's very intriguing to me about you, and even as an entrepreneur, you do something that I think is absolutely extraordinary to help people specifically, and it does connect with a person's own sense of their humanness. Tell us what it is professionally that you do in your business.
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm an author. My book came out in July 2025. And when I finished the manuscript, I was thinking about how so many people talk about the importance of having a personal brand. And because we're so digital these days, it's just a
Mhm.
very hot topic. And it's an important one. But I notice most of the personal brand considerations focus on the external, which certainly plays a role, like you're dressed well, like how you're presenting yourself on the podcast. That's really important, right?
Thank you. Mhm.
But it's like if people just focus on the outside and they haven't developed the person they are inside, it's who is the brand? So my definition of a personal brand is the essence of who you are and how that essence is perceived. So I've combined some of the principles for my book to make basically personal transformation meets personal branding. So it's
Mhm.
developing the business owner from the inside out and then going into things like positioning and messaging. And so what that does is it's putting them in a place where they're letting go of those fears that are holding them back, whether it's they're afraid of being more visible, they don't know how to set or they avoid setting healthy boundaries. They know how to do it, they just avoid it.
Mhm.
All of these little things that kind of chip away at who they are and how they present in the world, and that prevent people from forming deeper connections with them. And it's really the people to people connection. And that's what makes business, right? What makes
Mhm.
people memorable. Or they're showing up like the most successful person in their industry and they're kind of wearing this costume and doing what they're doing because they're like, well, that's the roadmap to success. I must do things that way and show up like that. And that can get them short-term wins, but it's
Mhm.
not sustainable because they're forgettable. Meanwhile, we all have something and some things very special about ourselves. So I help people really bring that to the forefront so that they can create something lasting, a network that is really flourishing, and it's because of who they are.
Wow, that is quite powerful because you're right. A lot of people who talk about personal branding talk about the external, about these are the colors and this is the messaging, but sometimes people can easily hide behind that and not really get into the core and the root of who they are. And this type of work isn't something a person just wakes up and says, "Hey, I want to do this to get more into the who and the core and the root and the heart and soul of who a person is." So take us back a little more. And did you see in your upbringing, in your life, little snippets of your personality or your character or just the way that you interacted in the world that led to who you are now?
Oh, definitely. In terms of the personal branding program, it takes some of the principles from my book, but really my lived experience. I learned the long, hard way as a business owner.
Mm,
It was just, I didn't realize I was just making it much more difficult for myself because I did
mhm,
not, I didn't have that confidence and, I was kind of hiding really behind my work. So it's like I would get lucky and get some clients that were just really stand up people and they recognize the quality of my work. And it's like, wow, dream client. But, other ones that I would get that they would take advantage, and it's like, no boundaries and things like that. And so it's funny how when you start to go along that personal journey of personal evolution,
Mhm.
how things that used to be problems all the time, like they don't exist. When I hear people talking
Mm.
about, these problematic client stories, I'm like, I can't even remember the last time I had anything like that, like so many years ago. We don't realize everything that's happening within us is what's
Mhm.
affecting what's happening outside of us. And I
Mhm.
think as business owners, we learn that not necessarily harder, but I think people can avoid that in their personal lives for a long time without having like some kind of reckoning come
Mhm.
about, or they realize, wow, I really do have to change. But in business, it happens pretty quickly. It's just,
Yeah.
it almost translates in real time. So,
Exactly. And a part of your personal branding too deals directly with, as you said, a lot of it stemmed from out of your book. What was the inspiration and the story behind even that book? And did you always see yourself as wanting to be an author bringing a message to the world?
ooh. Well, I've been obsessed with books and words since I
Mhm.
learned how to read when I was 3.
Mhm.
And I just, I knew all the librarians, and that's always been a passion of mine.
Uh-huh.
I considered writing books, but it was one of those things where I let the fear get in the way. I just kind
Mhm.
of, I didn't like announce I was going to write a book, but there was two, at least two. There were two fiction books I started writing, and then I just all the fear and
Mhm.
self-criticism came in. This was a different time in my life. And so I didn't finish those books. Um, but I've been a writer for forever, and I was had a copywriting and strategy business for 15 years. So
Wow.
words, I'm very comfortable with them.
Mhm.
But this story actually stems from when I was living in Miami. My boyfriend was from Montenegro, and we lived together, and I really loved the culture. I couldn't wait to visit.
Mhm.
When we went to visit, I was just like, I loved it so much that when I came back from vacation, everyone was like, "Your pictures are so, oh my God, so beautiful, your videos." And I was just like, I can't talk about it. Sorry. I was just like, I was so sad to come back to Miami.
Mm.
Because I never really wanted to live in Miami. My family moved there and I just stayed, and I knew that I would leave eventually. I just never made a concerted effort to do so. And
Mhm.
so the contrast for me was just very strong. I was like, I gotta go. Thankfully, he agreed with me like that we could go there. He was thinking eventually would probably do like part time. But he
Uh-huh.
said, let's go next year. We'll put our things in storage, and see if it works out with our businesses, and then we can always come back. So if anything, we just at least have a long summer vacation, the whole summer in Europe. And then if
Oh,
it doesn't work out business wise, we come back. Like no loss, right? No
what
harm,
a
no foul.
dream. Yes, what a
Yes.
dream. Wow.
Yeah. And so the first day that we moved there, it was great because I knew his family, but I never met his parents. And I didn't have time to meet them on that trip that we were there. They're in a different city when I visited. So that day we spent the whole day in the capital with his parents, and it was really lovely. Then we went to the seacoast that night, and our friend gave us his condo for the week and all the
Mhm.
water. It was just so nice. And it was the first time in my life up until then that I felt like everything was perfect. Like there was
Mm.
no stress, no problems. And um, yeah, everything was just like magical. But unfortunately, in the morning, I woke up and he did not. He passed
Mm.
away from a clot, and
Oh,
it's just not something you expect in
yeah.
your 20s for your boyfriend to pass away. And he was older than me, but still young. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was just wild. And just like this very energetic person who was like, I was always like
Wow.
running to keep up with him, like nonstop energy. Everybody loves him. And yeah, it was really surreal. And I decided to stay in Europe. And again, talking about nature, excuse me, I thought,
Hmm.
just for that reason alone, it was a much easier experience for me, I would say, in some ways for the grief, but it wasn't easy. And I didn't know the things I know now about the
Hmm.
power of emotions. So I kind of threw myself in that grief, and I didn't realize what it was doing to me. So the first 2 years were kind of bright spots, happy moments, and then like very dark, And
Mm-hmm.
then there was a point where I felt like I'd moved past that intense initial part of grief. But then I started having all these health challenges, all these food allergies one by one, when
Wow.
I never had any problems like that before. And I realized it had to be something emotional. The good news is there was nothing I could do at the doctor's office, so I started, meditating. I discovered yoga, all these things that I never had any of it. I did zero self-work at that
Mm-hmm.
point. Um, and on that journey, everything I tried made a difference, but it was kind of like keeping me just like in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was missing something. So fast forward, so after about almost 7 years in Europe, the US was calling me. I decided to try LA, and I loved it here. And just moving here, getting out of my usual everyday kind of scene, that already shook up my identity. So I was already able to eat some foods I couldn't eat before, which is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Um, and so I felt better, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And, still doing some self-work, but there's still a lot of patterns I was not seeing. Fast forward 4 years later, and I realized that the two people I spent the most time with were people who would keep me in a victim mindset and that I chose them. And I
Oh.
realized I'd had a victim mindset for a very long time. And that when he passed away, it just kind of solidified for me because I was just like, why me? Why us?
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized this whole situation I'd created. The good news about that is I made these changes in my life based on that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and everything started changing really quickly and my health started turning around. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And I basically made it like a full-time job outside of my business to meditate. I'm saying like 3 to 4 hours a day. The amount of insights I got, it was just like I felt so like I have to figure it out now because I've been working on
Mm-hmm.
this for so long and there was so much I couldn't see. And I got to do it now. So there was a point where I came home one day and I felt fantastic. And it dawned on me like, oh, I just stepped out of the cloud of grief. All these years, I
Wow.
was still carrying that.
Yeah.
And then my next thought was, I have to write a book. And then the thought intimidated me, but I just like knew like nobody has to spend that much time to
Mm-hmm.
before they reconnect to joy. We can come back sooner. And I realized a lot of people get stuck, not just not only for the loss of a loved one, but after a layoff, after losing a business, some kind of setback
Mm-hmm.
that they get stuck and they think they feel better, but they're really they've kind of shrunk back. Their dreams, they're afraid to lose, and so they're living smaller and they're not seeing it because they're inside the jar. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my thought, and so that's why I wrote the book. It's basically a
Wow.
roadmap to come back faster.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what a journey. And I'm glad you took that time to really talk like that because I don't want to be the kind of host that cuts you off when you're really making a point. That was needed because someone needed to hear it. Someone needed to hear that. And what is the word? Quite courageous of you, even though you were in the crux, in the heart of that grief, to still remain in Europe after such a devastating loss. And it's almost as if a new form and a new evolution of you was happening that maybe you didn't see it then, but it definitely helped to develop who you are now. And so, and if that's incorrect, correct me, but as you're going through this person of developing the person within, how did the world around you begin to reshape itself?
Oof, and in every way. So I would
Mm,
say it's odd because I've had this desire to move. It's still going to be
mm,
somewhere in Southern California, but I'm still here in
mhm,
LA. But I looked at the timing and I thought, well, that's changed. 7 years in LA. I was in Europe almost 7 years. So that almost
mhm,
7 years is very like confusing, but I guess you could look at it as like the cocoon,
mm,
it was very messy in many ways. And then here, after I started getting those insights, it changed every area of my life. I mean, literally every area of my life. And I just realized how, yes, life can be complicated, and there are a lot of things that
mhm,
are outside of our control. but so many things are within our control, and the tools that we have to make a difference are really inside of us. It changed every area of my life. So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't even. It's just staggering. Also, it's staggering because I did a lot of reading and I was really searching and doing all these modalities, and nothing was really moving the needle. And that's because the biggest missing piece was one, recognizing the victim mindset,
Hmm.
and two, the self-love component was missing because yes.
Let me ask you about that. We hear the term victim mindset, but what did that look like for you and how did you overcome it?
Mm. Yeah, so for me, it looked like, well, one, I picked people in my life who would treat me in a way that was like not great. And so then I could kind of
Oh,
complain about it,
I see.
and
Hmm.
but keep them in my life. And I didn't see
Hmm.
that as being anything. People are like, why are you so friends with them? And I was like, no, you don't know how they are. I th
Okay.
reference time, they're good friends a million years ago.
Hmm.
So I set it up like that unconsciously, of course, subconsciously. And so that's one thing. The food allergies made it easy for me to get in a victim mindset. And because every time I sat down at a restaurant, I'd have to talk about the allergies. And then
Mm.
I would just try and, just say it really quickly. But I'd already get in there and I'd be like in a fear mode when I sat down because sometimes there'd still be mistakes and then I'd have to take something. But then like the friends, I was, trying to say the allergies quickly to the server, and then they'd turn to everyone else at the table like, oh, she has all these allergies, da da da. It's like a
Oh,
sob,
I
sorry,
see.
you
Yeah.
know. But I
Yeah.
realized I really developed that victim mindset long before Bodo passed away because there are a lot of difficult things that happened as I was growing up, and I realized when I would meet people, they're like, "Oh, you find out what's people's story," and I would share these stories, and so it's like it became, which I think a lot of people do. You kind of relate to people more when you're like, "Oh, what's your story?" But they're always
Hmm.
something sad, so
Hmm.
and so I broke it because I just got really vigilant about. I don't allow anyone to refer to me as a victim for anything. Like I literally had a
Yes.
problem in my building
Hmm.
when they had this construction issue. It started bringing some chemicals in my place. I had to leave for like a month. It was like a whole drama. And it did affect my health while I was here and I had to leave. And it was funny because my friend, I went to stay at their place when my friend said, objectively, you are a victim in this scenario. And I said, nope,
That's right.
I will not. I'm Teflon for that word because
Hmm.
I just realized that because I made it my identity, I found scenarios. I basically shaped my life to support that story. So if you
Hmm.
shape your life to say I'm the one running the show, then those are the scenarios you have in your life.
Mm.
I just don't have the kinds of things don't happen like that. I don't have the
Yeah.
stories. So it's very interesting.
Interesting. And so putting pen to paper, metaphorically, whether it
Yeah.
was pen to paper and then later typing the book itself, take us to that moment of when you said, okay, I've got to write this book. It doesn't make all sense to me, but I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust whatever I need to do to just write it and get it out there. What was the urgency behind it? Because people can say, yes, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they never do it. What was the urgency and what was the reason for you having to get this message out?
One, it was not my idea to write it. It was this
Hmm.
realization that came to me, and to me, I look at that as it's from a
Uh-huh.
higher source. And I
Yes.
don't I don't question that because it's like I
Hmm.
know for me, if I ignore those calls, eventually I'm gonna have to take the call and it's just gonna be like disruptive until then. And I was interested in writing it because to me that purpose behind it, what I'm gonna help people avoid, come back from difficult things much faster, or if they don't have anything difficult going on, I'm gonna help them dream bigger. That's like a really important contribution. And I was at a point in my career where I felt like, okay, I love my work, but there was like no purpose behind it. So
Mm.
that was like, oh, an instant purpose. And it just felt like I'd been asking for, okay, well, what's gonna be next? And then this happened and I just took the call. when I started writing, for the most part, it just wrote itself. It was kind of wild. I was like
Mhm.
voice memos everywhere. And I stopped for like 4 months because I was super busy. I thought because my schedule was full. And then I realized at some point I was like, well, you could have written like a sentence here and there. Like you completely
Wow.
dropped it. And I realized it was the fear because it's vulnerable and I've never written a book before. Once I realized that was happening, I started writing really quickly again. So it happened. So it was just really getting out of the way. I really try not to there are a lot of ideas I have all the time, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to execute all of them necessarily, but I at least save them somewhere. But when there's an idea that comes in and I'm like, I'm going to do this, I just move on it right away because I know that if I wait, it's just going to be, it's like the chances that I'm going to do it anytime soon, it's going to go away. And this felt like a very important like message, like write this book, do
Hmm.
this.
Wow. That is quite the story, because to know that you can come back from something like this and then to now be in this space of helping others with their personal branding, how how intimate do you get with your clients in terms of getting them to really peel off the layers of who they are to really truly understand their branding, and how does that affect them in their businesses, in their careers, or in their overall life?
Mm. It really depends on what their goal is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I find there's no separation between business and the personal life
Yeah.
because whatever that thing is somebody doesn't want to face in the business, it's something they're not facing outside of work too. Just taking like the boundaries example, right? If they're letting their clients kind of bully them and call them whenever, or, you know, making them stick to standards that they got, grandfathered in. They're not letting them evolve and kind of pushing them in the corner, and they don't want to stand up
Mm-hmm.
and deal with that. I can guarantee that they're having boundaries that they're not setting in a healthy manner, or that they're not setting at all,
Mm-hmm.
either with their friends or, a romantic partner. So I don't really dig for personal, but personal tends to come up because um, they're all connected. It just depends on what the client's
Uh-huh.
willing to
Yeah.
discuss. Yeah.
Yeah, because I I don't see how you can separate the two. And I heard a stat earlier from someone I know. She has her doctorate in psychology, I believe, but she's also an entrepreneur. And she was telling me about 70% of entrepreneurs and people in leadership have active imposter syndrome, but they still work through it, but it's 70%. And that imposter syndrome comes from, of course, them not being fully confident in the awareness of who they are, or seeing themselves as frauds or not fully developed as someone else might be. And so I think that the work you're doing, and even through your own lived experience, is vitally important, because is it safe to say that once a person has a true grip on their personal brand in the way that you do it, that would then minimize those moments of imposters syndrome creeping up? Not to say that they might not have it here and there, but that constant ongoing aspect
Oh,
of it.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And even just becoming more visible for their
Mm-hmm.
businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean it has to be like a keynote stage with 50,000
Mm-hmm.
people. Everybody's so different. And so what does it mean to become more visible? That really
Yeah.
depends on who are you? What's your energy, your personality? What kind of business are you in? So for someone that might be just like narrating their social media posts. Now at least people have a voice to connect with, and they're going to see your pictures sometimes. Other
Mm-hmm.
people, it's going to be videos, like long form video. Other people, yes, they're going to be getting on a stage. So I think it's important really that people are not kind of thrown far out of their comfort zones, but that they do start taking the initiative to
Mm-hmm.
start branching out in some way. And the more we do those things, they just become second nature. And yes, we can
Mm-hmm.
feel a little like, oh, like a little
Yeah.
exposed sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly.
it does get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. And when your boyfriend passed, I believe you told me in our first call in 2012, correct? That's when he transitioned. When he passed in 2012, here we are now, if not at, but nearly 14 years later. When you think about who you are, Chanoa, and just your branding as a human being, but also how you do show up in your business, what area is the most different in a positive way from the Chanoa in 2012 and who her brand may have been versus the 2026 version of Chanoa?
Wow. This version of Chanoa is whew, always joyful, really.
Mm, wow.
Yeah, and she has released the trauma of her past. And so, we had a great relationship, great love.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I know it's a little codependent. Like, it was
Mm,
like, oh, I have this thing in my life happening. Our relationship is this bright star, and life
mm-hmm.
wasn't always that way. So I think he would also, pleased to see that there's so little I need externally to have so
Mm-hmm.
much joy within me. Yeah.
Wow. Joy is everything. And what I like about joy is that joy doesn't mean that you don't still have challenges or problems in life. Everybody
No.
does. But joy is a consistent state of being. It's a consistency that it gives hope, it gives life, it gives peace. It encompasses so much. It encompasses all of the colors and that beautiful artwork behind you. And that's what stands out to me. If a person wanted to know how to incorporate more joy or to eliminate imposter syndrome, or even just get down to the heart and the crux of what is my personal brand, or if someone said, hey, I'm really curious as to how I can read her book, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can find all of that on my website, chanoainez.com, chanoainez.com. I'm also active on LinkedIn and Instagram, Substack. And my book is available on Audible, Amazon, Kobo, Apple Books, and Potty.
Wonderful, wonderful. As we start to wrap up this interview, Shanoa, I want you to speak directly to that person who may be navigating a time in their life right now that is a bit difficult, a bit challenging. They may or may not be a business owner, but how can they continue or even begin the steps of cultivating a better or greater self identity in
Mm.
spite of what they're going through right now?
Mm. Um, yeah, I would say number one, um, be really vigilant about being your own best friend. Like, don't let
Mm,
a single thought cross your mind that you would never say to one of your friends. It would just not be okay.
hmm
You need you through this. Um, and I would say too, like, get comfortable with not being able to control everything because that's tend to be an additional pain to whatever has actually
hmm
happened. It's just like how scary it is. Like, you had everything figured out. You knew where everything was going. There's like this clear trajectory, and now there are so many unknowns in the way. So just think about it. Like, you don't have to know how, like, where things are going. You
hmm
don't have to have all the answers right away. And that also really lovely surprises come from not knowing too. They come from the unknown. So just getting really comfortable with not having everything outlined for you.
That is beautiful. And I love be your own best friend. That is a must.
Mhm.
That is an absolute must. And last, Shanoa, you mentioned about, your personal branding and having joy, but what brings you joy?
Oh. Wow, so many things. I mean, I guess if I'm just gonna like name a few items, I'm gonna say the meditations I do, even though I don't do them every day now, they bring me joy. I feel like I just embody them now, but I love the music and the energy and having this kind of ritual to devote time to myself.
Mhm.
Um, Music and dance, and spending time in nature.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.